Section 22, Judicial Review, Arizona Fair Housing 101, the final step in the fair housing process. Sarah leaned back in her chair after finishing another chapter. I think I finally understand how a fair housing complaint moves through the investigation. David smiled. You've learned how complaints are filed. You've learned how investigations are conducted. You've learned about conciliation. And you've learned what happens if an administrative law judge issues a decision. Sarah nodded. So what happens if someone believes that decision was wrong? David answered. Federal law provides one final level of review. That's called judicial review. What is judicial review? David explained that after a final administrative order is issued, a party who believes the decision was incorrect may have the right to request review by the appropriate federal court. The court isn't starting the entire case over. Instead, it reviews the administrative decision to determine whether the law was properly applied and whether the decision is supported by the evidence. Sarah smiled. So another set of eyes looks at the case. Exactly. The judicial system provides an additional level of oversight. The court reviews the record. Unlike many television courtroom dramas, judicial review generally focuses on the record already developed during the administrative proceeding. The court reviews the findings of fact, the legal conclusions, the evidence presented, the procedures that were followed. David explained that this is another reason accurate documentation is so important. The better the record, the easier it is for everyone to understand what actually happened. Possible court decisions. Sarah asked, what can the court do? David explains that the court has several options, depending upon the facts and applicable law. The court may affirm the administrative decision, modify portions of the decision, return the matter for additional proceedings if necessary, enforce the order when appropriate. The court's job, David explained, is to ensure the law has been applied fairly and correctly. Private civil actions. Sarah noticed another section of the Fair Housing Act. It says private individuals can also file lawsuits. They can. David explained that fair housing laws allow an aggrieved person, under certain circumstances, to bring a civil action in either federal or state court. These civil actions provide another avenue for individuals seeking relief for alleged housing discrimination. Sarah asked, so filing a complaint with HUD isn't always the only option? Correct. The Fair Housing Act provides more than one method for enforcing housing rights. Attorney's fees and court costs. Sarah looked surprised when she read another provision. The court can award attorney's fees? In appropriate cases, yes. David explained that courts have the authority, when authorized by law, to award reasonable attorney's fees and court costs to the prevailing party. This reminds everyone that fair housing litigation can become expensive, David said. Another reason it's always better to prevent problems before they begin. Protecting good faith transactions. David pointed to another important protection within the Fair Housing Act. The law also recognizes that innocent third parties should not automatically lose their rights simply because a fair housing dispute develops. In many situations, completed transactions involving good faith purchasers, tenants, or lenders who had no knowledge of the alleged discrimination receive legal protections under the Act. Sarah nodded. So the law tries to protect everyone involved. Exactly. Fair housing seeks fairness, not unnecessary disruption. The bigger picture. Sarah closed the Fair Housing Act. I think I finally see the entire process. David smiled. What do you see? The law gives people opportunities to resolve problems. It encourages cooperation. It allows investigations. It provides hearings. It allows judicial review. And throughout the process, everyone is given an opportunity to be heard. David nodded. That's exactly how our legal system is designed to work. Arizona broker tip. Very few fair housing complaints ever reach judicial review. Most are resolved much earlier through education, voluntary compliance, conciliation, or administrative action. The best way to avoid becoming involved in any stage of the enforcement process is to establish consistent office policies, document every transaction thoroughly, and treat every consumer fairly and equally. Online discussion question. 1. Why does the Fair Housing Act provide for judicial review of certain administrative decisions? Judicial review provides an additional level of oversight to ensure that the law was applied correctly, proper procedures were followed, and the administrative decision is supported by the evidence. Question 2. Why is complete documentation important if a fair housing case reaches judicial review? Answer. The court relies heavily on the administrative record when reviewing the case. Accurate documentation helps establish the facts and demonstrates the licensee's professionalism and compliance with fair housing laws. Question 3. Why does the Fair Housing Act provide more than one method for enforcing housing rights? Answer. The Act allows administrative remedies, judicial review, and private civil actions so that individuals have appropriate legal avenues to seek relief depending on the circumstances of the case.